Hello everyone, George here, and please excuse my raspy voice. I'm just getting over sickness where I lost my voice. But anyway, we're back here inside of my implementation of Five Nights at Freddy's using the Unity engine, along with Maya, LT, and where we left off in the last video was we had completed all of our Vive input stuff using the OpenVR module rather than using the Steam VR module. However, we still have relics from the prior version that we need to clean up. So for instance, all of our Vive controllers in the past utilized this method here, which of course required the Steam VR tracked object class and utilized all of that to pretty much interact with any particular object. We're going to start getting rid of that stuff now. So first of all, require component is no longer necessary, so we can get rid of that. We're no longer going to store our tracked object here either. Next up, start tracked object. Once again, we don't need the tracked object. That's going to go. And update. This is called once per frame. Really, this doesn't need to happen either. All that was happening here was that we were continually checking to see whether or not a particular button was being pressed. However, since we took the time to implement our delegates and events for every single button press type, this doesn't matter anymore. We can create our own method, pass it to the event, and the event itself will continue to fire off without us needing to constantly check and poll it outside of our Vive input class. So let's go ahead and actually, I'm not going to quite nuke it yet. I'm going to wait a second. What we can really do here is kind of get rid of the update part of this and just call this, let's call it unusable. Something like that. Or, you know what, maybe on use is better. We can get rid of this part here. That doesn't matter. And we'll get rid of that. And so what we're assuming here is that this is going to happen automatically whenever this occurs. That is a trigger event because we're going to add it to it. So what does a trigger event actually mean? These events. So button left trigger, button down, or button up. So we're going to go with, I think, button down. So let's change this now. We'll get rid of this part here. So hopefully this isn't too complicated. All we're going to do is use the event. We're going to add to the event an onUse method. And whenever that event transpires, onUse is also going to occur. So inside of start is where we need to add this thing. So we need to get the instance of our Vive input. So that means we need to do Vive input dot get instance. Now that we have the instance, we can start adding to our events since those are public. And the one we want to do is button down left trigger. Button down left trackpad, left trigger touch. Let's do button down left trigger touch. Actually, that's not what I want. I want on button down left trigger touch. Now plus equals, and we're going to add our onUse event to that. Great. So whenever this occurs, it will automatically call this. We're going to do the same exact thing for our right button as well, or our right trigger. I reserve the right to change on down to on up. It's up to me in the future. You know what? Actually, I'm thinking now, this is not the right way to do this. So our setup for this is, let's see, let's minimize all this stuff. Let's go to Camera Manager, and let's go to the body, and we have our left and right controllers right there. On the left and right controller, we of course have our Vive device tracker objects, and all that this does is it basically rips out from the Unity engine the input tracking for that particular device and updates its rotation and position. I'm going to convert this over to late update in case we're dealing with any kinds of things that depend on the location of the object. So after thinking for a second, rather than take too long getting into the weeds of all of this stuff, I kind of screwed up in the fact that I was beginning to think more about creating not usable objects, but objects that you could pick up with the physics system and then throw and move around. And I need to, for the moment, separate those two in my mind. And the easiest way to do this is actually to take this class and split it into two at the moment. One for Vive controller left and one for Vive controller right. The main difference being what trigger they happen to work with. Now, since the only difference is the fact that this changes, it really screams out that there should be some sort of a parent class that I should be, or excuse me, some sort of an abstraction that I should be doing so that this becomes the input to the class and that's what changes it. But we're still in early development of this game, so rather than deal with optimization and OOP properness, I'm just going to split the class into 2 bits. We're going to go to Vive controller. Hit Control D. I'm going to go and change one to left and the other one to right. Great. And let's open up both of these and see all the crap it gives me for that. Nothing yet. We're going to close Vive Input and Power Graphic. Going back over here, we'll open the right one up, which actually is named improperly. So let's go ahead and delete that. Double click to open it back up, reload, and Vive controller right and Vive controller left. The reason I'm doing this basically is due to the on trigger events. I plan on attaching to make things easy. I'm just going to attach the left and the right to the left and the right actual model, which will have a collider on it. When that hits an object, this particular one is going to fire off and it's going to be using that object. I'm just doing a clear separation between the hands, since I don't need to worry about a person potentially having 3 hands when playing this game. So going back over here into our hierarchy, let's make this work. So we have controller left and we have controller right. We can actually, let's make them a little bit smaller. Let's add component and let's do Vive controller left and Vive controller right. Let's go back to the script and actually modify these so the right controller should only be adding to the right trigger. We'll get rid of that line. And the left controller should only be adding to the left trigger line. Save that as well, and we're good to go. Clear that off, and we're going to give it a go. Actually, this probably won't work since I don't have any objects that are usable at the moment inside of my game world. Now, do I? So those are my weird looking pills for the moment until I put in a real model. Oh, the power gauge is inside of that. Uh-oh, that's flashing. It's probably bad. Okay. That was a mistake. So what we're going to do now... Oh, interesting. Oh, that's the Matrix stuff. That's not me. That's OpenVR. So what I need to do is begin attaching usable things to these different objects. So when I was playing... Let's see, the door needs to be usable, right? So let's open up. Wow, I've got a lot of bad names on these objects that need to be cleaned up inside of Maya. We're not going to jump into that kind of mess in this video. Zooming on in. Oh, God. Why is that head right there? Lights out head. Shouldn't that be off? Whatever. We'll talk about it later. So the buttons themselves were usables because you could click each one. You know what? Before we get to adding the usable stuff, maybe we should add controls, because at the moment I'm sitting down in a chair and I don't have, you know, a 4x4 meter space to move around in or whatever the Vive's limitations are. So I should probably put controls so I can move around and actually get stuff to work. Let's go to the controller system, which is the body. I'm going to add component. Let's do a new script. And let's say, call this movement controls. So all we're going to do for movement controls is, I guess we can query the axes on one of the controllers, say the right or the left, and determine which direction we should be moving around in. I'm going to, for now, do this based on... I can do it based on either the forward head direction or the direction of the controller. For right now, let's try the direction of the forward head. So I'm going to have to get the main camera's direction and forward vector. So let's do vector 3 forward is equal to camera.main. You're just going to crap out on me, aren't you, Unity? All right, let's try that again. Double click. Sorry, my voice is getting a little bit worse. We'll see if we can't get some of this done before I completely lose it. Vector 3 forward is equal to camera.main.transform.forward. Great. So there's our forward vector. Now I need to query information about the state of the controller. So we'll do Vive input.getInstance.get, and I want get, what is this even called? Right trackpad horizontal. And we're also going to want to grab the vertical one too. Whoops. So let's create a vector 3 temp, which is going to be equal to this component. And then, let's see, this gives me a vector 2, I'm sorry. So really, I should be doing this. I'm sorry, that's a float. And this is a float, isn't it? So this should be temp x. And this should be temp z. And then we want to create our new vector. So that's vector 3 input direction is going to be equal to a new vector 3. And we're going to use both of those quantities. So we want to do a temp x 0.0 and then a temp z. And given the way that I'm doing this right now, where the controller is independent from the head, and that, what I mean by that is the fact that we're not using the controller's direction to move us, but the head's direction, which might be completely wrong. We might need to test this, see if it's at all familiar to a person. And if it's not, then we're going to change this to the other way, where the controller actually uses the controller's direction. But I want to also get the right vector from the camera. So let's do camera.main.transform.right. All right, GHT. Now I want to scale each of these by the amount here and combine them into one vector. So let's do vector 3 temp is going to be equal to forward times temp x or temp z plus right times temp x. I think that works. And then we'll normalize the entire thing. So temp dot normalize. And now we'll move in that direction. We can either manually move in that direction or we can attach a character controller for the moment. I'm thinking for now, let's just do the character controller. That'll make things easy. Let's go to add component and character controller. This way we don't have to worry about gravity and everything else at the moment. It'll do everything automatically. I am going to make the character controller thinner. 0.4 maybe, 0.45. Height is fine at 2. That looks fine. And we need to add a rigid body. I'm going to turn on kinematic. Actually, I don't think I need to attach a rigid body since I'm using the character controller. So let's grab the character controller in here and work with that. It's been a little bit of time since I worked with the character controller. Let's do character controller, CC. Let's grab that in start. It's equal to get component character controller. There we are. And now here in CC, we'll just do simple move for now. And we just need the vector we're moving in and the speed. So that's going to be temp times whatever our speed is. Since simple move, I believe, automatically takes into consideration the time that has transpired. So let's just do what serializable field protected speed is equal to how fast we want to move, 1.5 meters per second, something like that. Put a float in there. F and copy that. Copy. Paste that there, hit that. And let's give this a shot by first attaching this to the body. So there's the body, add component, and movement controls. Save, hit run. Turn on the controllers, put the headset. I'm just going to put it on my head. I'm not going to actually stick it on my eyes or in my face region. Oh boy. Yeah, we don't have a collider on the floor, do we? We're going to have to make colliders. For now, let's go to Game Object, 3D Object, create a plane. And we want to zero this out, don't we? Somewhere like there. Expand that, move it someplace, and we're good. Let's try that again. Well, let's do a printout and see if anything happens. So let's do a debug.log, and what do I want? Temp times speed. That's fine. Save. Come back over here. Go to our console. Clear all that junk. Hit run. So let's take a look at what we're grabbing for our value. I think that's the issue, because they're all zeroed out. So I'm wondering if these values are zeroed out. Good time to test this stuff, right? So let's go back over to Edit, Project Settings Input, and I probably screwed something up here. Okay, so I think I found the problem. I looked here. All of our axes are correct in the manual. If we come down here, though, for Archon Trackpad Hors and Archon Trackpad Vert, we have this set to mouse movement when it's a joystick axis. So let's go through here and look at our axes and make sure they're actually correct. So we're dealing with Archon Trigger Touch. These are buttons, so I don't need to worry about them. Here's where the axes begin. So the L-cons should also be set to joystick axes. So let's do that. And we'll continue down the line just to make sure everything's correct. Once again, this is not mouse movement. This is a joystick. Joystick. And the grips, too, should be joystick axes. There we go. Let's save that. Let's go ahead and hit run and see if we can't get values coming out on the console here. And there we go. And we're moving very, very fast. Perfect. Actually, I think we're falling through space now. So let's go ahead and hit run. Oh, I'm still falling through space. Oh, crap. Goodbye, everyone. Let's move that collider slightly. So where's my body? Here's the camera manager itself. Here's the body. Let's just raise that up a bit. There we go. Now we're stuck someplace. Good. Oh boy. I think I need a dead zone on this. Oh, we're using just touching. We're not using pushing, which is a problem. We don't want to base this on just touching. We want to do make sure the users actually push this thing down. So checking back on movement controls, we can of course do an if Vive input dot, and we want to get the state of get instance dot get button down right trackpad press. So long as the trackpad has been pressed, we can calculate all of this stuff. Now the problem is some of these need to come out here because temp is used here, so we need to declare temp up here. Why am I doing this? Because character controller needs to be called repeatedly. Character controller.simpleMove needs to be called over and over and over again if you want it to actually calculate moving through gravity, that is, having it fall. So I need this function to fire off each and every time. If I just attached this to when you press the button, you'll be locked in space until you press the button again. And that's not at all what I'd like. In order to set this to vector 3.0, that works. And speed is set. So all these values are dependent upon whether or not you've clicked it. Otherwise it's 0 and nothing happens. I'm confident we're going to get rid of the debug statement. I'm going to hit save, come back over here. I'm going to take a quick look at why I'm looking at the back of this place. So there's the body. There's the camera manager. I'm going to take the body and rotate it 180 degrees. I'm probably going to rip the body out of this thing. I don't like it being under the camera manager. Run, we fall, and actually, you know what? I did the wrong thing. It's not on button down. I just want on button. The reason is because I want to continually query the state, and if the state of this thing is down, I want to process this. If it's anything else, I don't want to process it. So now let's do this again, and there we are. Now we can move around our world. Although, where's my head looking at? Didn't I rotate that? Let's see. There's that. There's my head. My head's zeroed out. Let's zero out my body again. So both of them are looking in that direction. If I hit run, okay, that's better. Right? Yes. So now my head's looking that way, which means my buttons are reversed. But I can traverse the level and move around, which is a feature I'm not exactly sure I want, but I do want to at least be able to traverse around inside of that room based upon whether or not you're using a room scale device or something else. Let's clear that out. And I need to flip some stuff, I think. So the axes seem to be reversed. So go to Edit, Project Settings, Input, and it's the verticals that seem to be reversed. So let's go to Archon trackpad, let's see, vertical, yes. I want to invert the input for that. And let's go to Lcon trigger vert and reverse the input on that. All right, save and hit run. And now I'm actually moving in the direction of my head. Let's look at this from a top-down view so we can see this a little bit more clearly. So there's my camera, and there's the frustum, and here you can see as I move my head, I move in that direction. All right, like I said, based on play testing, I have the right to get rid of that or not, but we'll see it. Anyway, this video is getting a little bit longer than I expected it to be, so why don't we go ahead and stop there for now, and I'll see you in the next video, where we're probably going to go back in the Maya, clean up names of things, and start adding colliders to the level, since now we're dealing with collision detection. Thank you all. I hope to see you next time. So long, goodbye.